Those are the headlines of the hour, but we of course start with Europe's defining crisis. And Ukraine's military has said that it has struck Russia's Saratov oil refinery overnight, causing explosions and a large fire in the area around the site. The military has also stated that Ukraine has also hit a sea oil terminal in Crimea and a warehouse in Donetsk. The Ukrainian armed forces have also stated that it has struck located in Russia's border Belgorod region with almost 30 unmanned aerial vehicles. Furthermore, the armed forces have fired more than 4 rounds of munitions over the past day. And the Ukrainian military has added that there are 300 Russian troops in Pokrovsk and that Russian forces have stepped up attempts to enter Pokrovsk on light vehicles. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry has said that its air defenses have downed 37 Ukrainian drones overnight, including in Crimea and Saratov. The Russian official has also stated that Ukrainian attacks have killed 8 civilians and injured another 45 in Russia over the past week. Okay, now joining us is Ben Aries. He's a journalist and he joins us live from Peterborough in the United Kingdom. Ben, thank you very much for joining us here on News X. It's a pleasure to have you. First of all, Ukraine says it has struck this oil refinery in the region of Saratov. How effective are such long-range strikes in disrupting Russia's oil and overall energy economy?
They're more effective than they were. What's happened is that the nature of the war has changed. About 2 years ago, the drone war started, and both sides were ramping up drone production. But increasingly in this year, since the summer particularly, it's turning more into a missile war, into a long-range drone war. And the Ukrainians, in the beginning, their drones were like short-range with small payloads. And in the meantime, they've developed these drones with increasing range that can reach up to 2,000 kilometers. That means they can strike deep into Russian territory. And the Ukrainians have been frustrated by basically the failure of sanctions on Russia's oil, which of course provide a lot of the money to pay for Putin's war. And so what they've decided is to take matters into their own hands, that the allies, the West, does not provide them with long-distance missiles, which they constantly call for, such as the Tomahawks, the American Tomahawks. And so they've taken these long-range drones and they've amped them up, they've got bigger payloads, and they're targeting Russia's oil and gas industry, particularly the refineries, in an effort in order to reduce production and then to hurt the Kremlin in the pocket so that it doesn't have the money to continue to pay for the war. And it's been successful in so much as that they've reduced Russia's oil products production by somewhere between 10 and 20%. It's not clear exactly how much damage they've done. And the drones are more powerful than they were and are doing significantly more damage than they were. But nevertheless, they remain drones. They're not the powerful cruise missiles that Ukraine has been asking for. And those things could flatten a refinery. And what the drones are doing are superficial damage. And in the early days, they were causing fires that caused refineries to shut down for a few days. Now it's more significant, and they're taking refineries out for a month, 2 months, and the Russians are racing to repair them. But it's like a war of attrition. And as I say, it's impacted the Kremlin's budget income at a time when the budget is already under severe pressure because of the costs.
Yes, Ben, do stay with us as we have more coming out of the conflict. Now, according to a governor, Ole Keeper, a Russian drone attack on Ukraine's southern Odessa region has damaged energy and transport infrastructure. The attack has also injured 1 person and sparked fires at multiple energy facilities. Meanwhile, according to reports, Russian forces have captured an oil depot in the eastern part of Ukraine's Kupiansk. The Russian Defense Ministry has also said that Russian forces have fully liberated that part of Kupiansk. The ministry also stated that Russian forces have captured Novosupenivsky in Ukraine's Zaporozhye region and said that its units are actively advancing in Pokrovsk. Ben, we just spoke yesterday about the gains that Russia was making, particularly in Pokrovsk, but I want to start off in Kupiansk. How significant is this reported capture of Kupiansk's eastern sector?
Well, it's part of the grinding war that we've been discussing, as you said yesterday. The key battle is for Pokrovsk, and the Russians seem to be making steady progress there, although the AFU, the Armed Forces of Ukraine, have mounted a heroic defense, and they're making it very difficult. I mean, each meter that the Russians take is costing them hundreds of men's lives in order to take them. And what they're trying to do is surround the town. They're trying to take out all the villages that lead into it, and slowly strangle Pokrovsk and the pockets that contains some of Ukraine's best paramilitaries. They're trying to cut them off from their supplies. And it's a war of attrition. Rather than storm the cities, storm the villages, they're taking it piece by piece in the hope of strangling the Ukrainian forces of supplies until they finally have to give up.
Yeah, and of course, as we've spoken about, we're seeing Russian forces now advance in Pokrovsk and Zaporozhye. Are we seeing a renewed offensive aimed at stretching Ukraine's defences, and how effective is it?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, Putin's moved up some 150,000 troops and concentrated them in this particular region, and in and around the city, there's well over 10,000 Russian troops. And they're just grinding away. I mean, it's going to go on and on until finally the Ukrainians capitulate. In so much as the Ukrainian forces are under increasing pressure, that the supply lines are being cut. That's the whole point of Pokrovsk. It's a nexus for road and rail to supply the eastern front from the rest of Ukraine. And the Russian plan is just to squeeze and squeeze in the hope that the Ukrainians run out of resources in the meantime. And they're already suffering catastrophic shortage of manpower. But they're holding their own thanks to their drones. Their drones are very effective. But there again, the Russians seem to have the advantage in drones in so much as the Ukrainian drones are sort of higher tech and tactical. They're very effective. But the Russians are just swarming drones in large numbers, and so they have an offensive advantage in that. And it's from all the reports coming out of the city, it's an absolute bloodbath. The streets are littered with corpses. Nobody's got any time to collect them. And again, the reports coming out are very confused. Some of the military bloggers say that Russians already control 95% of the city. Others say it's a running battle and maybe 60%, but the Ukrainians have holdouts. And however, I think there's going to be a conclusion to this battle fairly soon.
Ben, thank you very much. Do stay with us as we have a related development coming out of NATO state Romania, where its defence ministry has said that suspected drone fragments have been found 5 kilometres inside its territory following an overnight attack on Ukrainian Danube River, reports. The ministry has said that the suspected fragments have been found near Grindu in the southeastern county of Tulcea near the Danube. Romania shares a 650-kilometre land border with Ukraine and has had drones breach its airspace and fragments fall onto its territory repeatedly since Russia began attacking Kyiv's ports across the Danube from Romania. Last month, Romania received an advanced air system from the United States, which can enhance its ability to protect itself against drones entering its airspace. Ben, once again, drone debris found 5 kilometres this side inside Romanian territory, of course, a NATO state. How concerning is it that this keeps happening?
Well, it's related to the two stories we just covered. Like I mentioned, the Americans are threatening to send Tomahawk missiles, which are long-distance, very powerful missiles, and Russia does not want to see that because its refineries would be flattened. And in response, Putin's engaged in some saber rattling here. So about 2 months ago, we had a drone incursion, the first serious one, into Poland. And about half a dozen drones flew right the way across Poland, pretty much unopposed. And then the next day, they flew into Romania. And what Putin's doing is he's testing NATO's air defenses, or rather he's making the point that NATO air defenses in Romania, in Poland, are totally inadequate to deal with these drones. So you mentioned the air defense systems that Romania's got. In Poland's case, they have Patriots, they have surface-to-air, but they spent $1.4 billion bringing down half a dozen reconnaissance drones that weren't even armed. That cost $10,000 each to make. And the point was to highlight, yes, you can shoot down one wave, but if there's a sustained attack by Russia and it swarms thousands of drones into Poland, into Romania, that they're horribly ill-equipped. And the equipment that they're getting, the air defenses, they're not that they're ineffective, they're extremely ineffective, but there's not enough of them. And more to the point, the cost of them, one of these missiles, Patriot missiles, costs something like $400,000 a piece, that there's no way that NATO can sustain it. And so Putin is in this way putting pressure on NATO, particularly the States, not to send these powerful missiles because he's threatening to escalate and start flying drone attacks on the supply bases, which are based in Romania, which are based in Poland, in order to put the Americans off. And so far, actually, it's proved to be a fairly effective threat.
Ben Aries, thank you very much for bringing your insight here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have you on the programme. We now move on over to a separate development, and Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, claims to have foiled a joint Ukrainian-British plot to steal a Russian MiG-31 fighter jet equipped with a Kinzhal hypersonic missile. According to reports, the FSB says that Ukrainian military intelligence, with the support of Britain, attempted to recruit Russian pilots by offering them $3 million and foreign citizenship. In exchange, the Russian pilots had to fly the jet to a NATO base in Romania's Constania. The FSB says the plan aimed to create a large-scale provocation against Russia, but security measures prevented the pilot from succeeding. The MiG-31 carries the Kinzhal, which is an air-launched missile that Moscow describes as a hypersonic and capable of evading air defenses. A Russian state TV shows pictures of messages and recordings of a man who they say was working for Ukrainian and British intelligence. Let's have a look at what the pilot said.
Было желание Сергея скомпрометировать меня, чтобы впоследствии использовать это в интересах разведки. Вопрос о выплате мне вознаграждения за якобы переданную мной информацию военного характера. При этом деньги должны были быть переведены на мою личную банковскую карту. В случае успешного угона самолета мне предлагалась сумма в $1 миллион США. Потом, в случае передачи самолета с ракетой «Кинжал» была увеличена до $3 миллионов. Также мне было предложено гражданство одной из
Okay, we're now joined by Martin Saar-Arias. He is a foreign affairs expert and he joins us live from Ecuador. Martin, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. How credible do you find this account, given Russia's history of information warfare, of course? Quite a compelling interview coming out there from Russian state media.
Obviously, I think because of the record in the background of corruption in the Russian media, it needs to be perform a more strict and a deeper investigation in order to corroborate these accusations. However, I think in this case, Russia will need to prove what it is saying, and basically it's the war between Britain, Ukraine against the Russian allegedly report of this bravery and this corruption that has been allegedly perpetrated by the British and Ukrainian side. However, I think the international community should pay attention in this issue. And in the case Russia manages to confirm and to prove this situation, I think it will be a huge, not only legal, but also a huge problem in the sense of the support of the legitimacy of Ukraine having a fair relationship within the war and within the state of law.
Yes, indeed, Martin. And of course, we've seen this pilot speak. He said he was offered $3 million for foreign citizenship. Does that sound like a genuine recruitment attempt or a staged counterintelligence story?
I think anyone can say anything. We need to have an actual proof of these accusations. However, if we don't have any actual proof, this is a mere you know, like as you said, like an intelligence try to
Yes.
be like basically promulgate this issue against Britain and Ukraine. I think the only thing that Russia can do is confirm it with vouchers, with an actual communication registration from British agents or any type of payment through a bank. If they fail to prove this, it will be just a mere accusation and a defamation.
Okay, Martin Saar Arias, do stay with us as we have further stories coming out of Europe.